Hey everybody, thanks for jumping on to keep track here of Brian's arraignment today. I'm just following Brian Entin's tweets here and just seeing what kind of updates we hear about. Feel free to chat down below. I'll keep an eye on the chat as well. I'll answer any questions you have. After today's hearing, I will be working on another video to talk a little bit about today and then some other things on the case also. But it's good to see everybody here, and let me know any thoughts on what's going on. So far, it looks like we have Brian Entin in the courtroom. He did mention that he did not see Brian's family initially. We did see, he did see a lot of people from the victims' families, and it looks here like the judge has read each of the victims' names as he goes over the murder charges. The judge told Kohberger that the maximum penalty is life in prison or death. Kohberger a couple of minutes ago said yes, that he understands the charges and penalties. At this point, Kohberger is standing silent, so the judge is entering not guilty pleas. The prosecution will now have 60 days to seek the death penalty, which I'm pretty sure they're going to do. It's already laid out in the charges that they're filing. One of those Idaho statutes, I believe it was 4004, essentially says that they do intend to seek the death penalty, so I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. I know also that some of the victims' families wish for that, and so I think that they may consider that as well. And then Kohberger's attorney is asking the judge to set the trial for October. She says it will take at least 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. So after today, everybody, we will have more of a wait, but maybe we'll hear some new insights here. We have a lot of media, at the trial here following it. Maybe we'll learn some new information that we can discuss. It's good to see everybody. Heidi, looks like we have GoBot, Linda, Overprotected, Renee, Lauren, Root, Lara. Thank you so much, Overprotected. I appreciate that. Let's hit refresh here. They are wrapped up in the courtroom. Let's see what he updates us on. So they have set the trial date for October 2nd at 8:30 in the morning. So we're going to have just about 5 months to wait before the trial begins. So nothing new here. I'm going to jump over real quick to a couple of documents. Let me find them here. Here we go. So I'm going to delve in a little bit more in my next video, but just a few things I wanted to comment on here. Thanks, Overprotected. Yeah, I do want to circle back also on some of those other cases that we've talked about. Maybe Brian could be connected to. I do think those cases warrant a little bit more digging into, if anything, just to hear some updates, if any law enforcement, anything's changed, or if they're doing anything new on that. So we'll check into those cases. Real quick though on here, there was one thing that I saw going around on quite a few of the YouTube channels recently, and that was when these new documents were released where they were discussing the motion to compel discovery, where the defense was asking for all of this information from the state, and then the state ended up responding. And there was one in here that I think confused some people. Let me find the right one. I'm sorry. To some extent, because there was a lot of discussion flying around that the DNA evidence was going to be excluded, or that the defense was planning to not use the DNA evidence. And I don't think that's necessarily what they're saying here. And I do think it's really interesting, though, what they are talking about. So just bear with me. Let me just find this answer from the state. It would have been, maybe it was this one, but essentially it's where they're let's see. Sorry everyone, I just want to make sure I find the right piece. But essentially, you know, the defense is asking for all of these records from the genealogy testing. It's going to be right here. Genetic genealogy testing and search. So there was multiple things that they were asking for, and from what I can tell, they're looking for anything that maybe could have come up in their testing that tied to, you know, unknown people, somebody other than the defendant. You know, they want to see pretty much everything that came up in their processing before they settled in with Bryan being connected to this. The state responded and said, you know, this is outside of the scope of, you know, a motion to compel, and essentially is saying that, you know, the stuff that they're asking for is abnormal and outside of what they are entitled to have, because basically they don't own any of this testing data. And the defense is, or the prosecution is essentially saying that they don't intend to use that information in the trial. So the fact that the defense is asking for it, the state is saying you don't need it. We don't plan to use this information. But bear with me here, because I want to find this other piece of the response, because it does talk about protecting an informant, essentially. And it makes me wonder if maybe somebody in Bryan's family could have potentially given DNA at some point. You know, I still wonder if somebody in Bryan's family may have called law enforcement or cooperated with law enforcement, and it's possible that they may have even been able to use a family member's DNA, his dad. There's been talk here about his sister having some suspicions, you know, about his behavior. So even a sister, you know, and I could see if maybe they had somebody assisting them, they wouldn't want to reveal that information. It's just a thought I'm having based off of, you know, what the defense was responding back to what was being asked for here. So let's take a quick look. Nope, this is all the media stuff there. Yeah, Jack, I will. I'm going to circle back. I'll run through those tweets before I wrap up this video here. Let me just track down. I'm sorry. So we have our compel. State's response. Apologize, I cannot find this document that I was reading a bit ago. Okay, it's not that one. Here it is. All right, so in regard to the defense's request for genetic genealogy testing and search, the state objects and intends to separately file a motion in limine. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but basically this means in advance. They plan to separately file a motion in advance and a motion for protective order under ICR 16.1. They're essentially saying it is not relevant, it is not material to the preparation of the defense, it is not intended for use by the state as evidence at trial, and none of the documentation being sought belongs to the defendant. So this is where I think it threw people off, because it sounded like the state was not intending to use the results here in the trial, but what I believe they're saying here is that the information that the defense is requesting regarding all of these things that could have led to somebody else is not what they're going to use. And the argument here is they don't want to over confuse the jury. So there's some rules within trials where if there's evidence that is basically just going to complicate and throw a whole mess of stuff at the jury and just kind of drown out the relevant pieces of the evidence, the other side can argue that that shouldn't be allowed in the trial, and because they're saying that it's going to waste time, it's going to cause confusion, and it's just not allowed, right? When it's just a way that the defense is going to try to dilute that DNA evidence, right? They're going to go in there and say, well, look at it, could have been this person, it could have been that person. And they're going to drill down into that whole testing process. Well, it's a process, right? There's going to be moments within that process where maybe they're running something and it's searching and it's coming back with other results. Well, you're not going to get into all of that with the jury and try to create doubt that way, right? It's not a valid way for them to create doubt. So that's what I think is going on here. I think the state is essentially saying you don't need all of this information on the genealogy testing. We're not intending to use it in the trial, and then they're going to file a motion to ensure that the defense during the trial can't do that and kind of create the doubt by flooding the court with a bunch of irrelevant information. I definitely do think they are going to use any DNA results they have that connect Bryan to the sheath, obviously, or anywhere else where they've discovered DNA. But I think the argument here is we don't need to share all of this genealogy testing processing with you. Real quick, just gonna say hi to everybody in the chat. Appreciate you hanging out. Hey Harlot, Jack, Cynthia, Cosmic, always good to see you. Out the way, Dre, Jody, Annie, really appreciate y'all being here. Yeah, I got real busy at work. Wasn't able to make as many videos as I wanted. I'm kind of back into it now. I'm still kind of pulled back and forth, so I do the best I can. I don't want to just push out content just to, chase rumors, and, it's very easy to, every day get up and just hear the latest rumor and make a video on it. I do like to think through what we're hearing. I like to absorb things a little bit and then come up with a theory or an idea or feedback for you. Sometimes it amazes me, that there can be somebody just comes out of the woodworks who just happens to live in Moscow and says something, and then you see 50 videos out there about this person, and there's literally nothing to validate what that person is saying. And I like to wait a little bit and let that kind of work itself out, and then if something real is out there, if there is a real connection, that will come to the surface, and then we can talk more about it. But you have to be really careful. This is a high profile case, and just because somebody lives in Moscow and maybe heard a rumor or knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody doesn't mean they have any insight to the case at all. And it amazes me also that everybody is so quick to kind of follow some of these rumors, when you talk about, whether it's drug dealing and, things like that, and everybody kind of we start following that stuff right away. But remember, there was a very thorough investigation done here. And if there's anybody that is connected to the victims, that knows them in any way, they would have been uncovered. There would be a phone record history there, a text message somewhere along the line. There would be, all these people who are coming out now who are saying they know of all these drug dealings that were going on. Well, where were those people back in November and December pointing out who all of these drug dealers were when they were looking for the killer? And then initially it was, Dylan was the one doing it, and then it was, Dylan's boyfriend, and then, Bethany was even maybe involved in it, and then it became Xana who was doing it, and it was Xana's mom, and then it was even for a short period of time Xana's dad had something to do with it, and then now we have this new girl, Emma Bailey, being talked about. So there's been this ongoing rumor about drug dealings and things going on, but nothing is solid, right? After 6 months, nothing has really come out to prove anything other than just kind of hearsay and rumors. And the thing that bothers me, and it keeps changing from one person to the other, so it's kind of like it's being desperately trying to be connected. If it was valid, why aren't we sticking with the original theory of, it was Dylan, right? That's what they were saying for months. So now all of a sudden it's somebody else. So if it was really valid, what happened to the original story, the original Dylan theory on this? All of a sudden now it's Emma Bailey. And that's okay. I don't mind people discuss. I think it's great, to discuss it. I think we have to be careful, with what we say is true and what isn't true, and at least vet some of the information and who some of the people are. At one point there was, a mom who was calling into channels, a mom of somebody who supposedly knew the students, and she was literally hearing the rumors that were just coming from her daughter in the college, right? And then calling in and saying it as if it was evidence. So real quick, for those who just joined, I'm going to do a quick run through here on Brian Entin's tweets. Let's check back on that. Catch you up on what happened today so far. So it was pretty quick hearing. Brian Entin was there. He did mention that the victims of the families, the victims' families were in the courtroom. Looks like Kaylee's sister and had her baby with her. About 25 people were in the family section. Sounds like it was pretty emotional for the family members. Roughly 50 people in the courtroom. He said it was pretty quiet as they were waiting. He did not see any of Brian Kohberger's family there at this point when he tweeted. I don't know if they arrived later. He didn't tweet later on that they showed up. Which I mentioned earlier, my thought that maybe somebody in his family knew more. Now they're not there supporting him. They initially did say, and I'm saying this assuming that they... assuming. So it looks like the video is available now. We'll check that out here in just a sec. Let's see. Anybody have the link to the video, or where is that? Where's the video located? Anybody know? Let's see here. Let's just try a search. Court TV. Thanks, Harlot. Let's see. Let's take a look here. Trying to find where it begins for us. Here we go. Sorry, I'll try to get to the beginning of it. There we go. I definitely like to definitely want to take a look and see how Brian's looking after being in jail here for quite a bit. You know, that's a great point, Tanya, that I've been meaning to mention as well, really quick before I hit play here. Yeah, you know, being judgmental, you know, we all follow true crime, and I think most of us have an opinion on it, whether he's guilty or innocent, and that's great, right? My opinion happens to be that he's guilty. I do think they have the right person, and I think it's fine, you know, if people say, well, hey, he's innocent until proven guilty, that's fine, but you've got to have an opinion one way or another. So you can think he's guilty, and then you can still be open-minded to hear evidence that shows that he's innocent, right? That's how I am, and I just haven't seen that evidence. So I lean toward the side of guilt. But if, you know, that's one thing, Tanya, that I think makes me lean that way is, you know, if I, for example, were being accused of a crime like this, I absolutely would be screaming from the rooftops, it wasn't me, you've got the wrong guy, let's run some more DNA tests, right? You know, is Brian coming forward and saying, hey, let's run this DNA again here, you know, take my DNA, let's make sure, let me show you that this is wrong. Think about it, the defense is trying to poke holes in the validity of the DNA. Well, a great way to do that is let's rerun it with Brian's actual DNA. I'm sure they're rerunning it anyway, they took his DNA, but you would think that would be a great thing for Brian if he is in fact innocent. And then also, you know, the family members have been very quiet. You know, I would hope that if I were innocent and I were sitting in jail in a situation like this, that I would have people in my corner doing whatever they could to help, you know, to help me get out, right, and help prove my innocence. But we haven't seen any of that, right? It's been, it very, very much seems like Brian is guilty, in my opinion. And then I think the biggest thing really is the grand jury indictment, right? And initially, you know, when Brian's been sitting in jail now for 5-6 months, you don't sit in jail for 5 or 6 months if there's not something, if there's not evidence against you. And then just recently here we have the grand jury also finding that there is enough evidence for this to go to trial. So remember that we were supposed to have been waiting until June 26th for them to determine whether or not this was going to go to trial, but instead it went before the grand jury, and then they looked at everything and they said, yeah, there's enough here for this to go to trial. And I think that's a big deal, right? They're looking at everything, all the evidence that the prosecution has, and there's a group there who obviously believe that there's enough to send this to trial. So there's got to be evidence there. There's got to be something pointing to his guilt. Otherwise, that wouldn't be happening, right? All right, so let's hit play here, everyone. Sorry for that little rant. The volume's all the way up. I'm not sure if how that's going to come through here. You know what? I think, sorry everyone, I think I might have to add the audio here. One sec. Sorry, still figuring out this editing stuff. So we've got our display capture. I need my here we go. Monitor. Let's see if we have sound. If somebody can let me know, please, after I hit play here, if you can hear the sound from the courtroom video. Sorry, everybody, trying to get the sound here.
Judge, if you don't know me, I'm the Lake County District Judge, and I'll be presiding over this case. So, Mr. Kohberger,
Well, look, everybody, I don't, sound check here, sorry. Getting all off track. Okay. I'm not sure if y'all got. I'm not sure if I can get the. I don't want to make you sit here while I'm messing with the audio. Oh, yes, on the sound. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to talk through here and just kind of update you on what the judge is saying, and then I'll clean this up and I'll post the full hearing later on so you guys can check it out with the audio. I'm sure you'll find it online as well.
all witnesses to testify for you, if you choose to testify in your own defense. But you're not required to testify because you also have the right of silence. That right is protected under the Idaho Federal
So the judge is explaining that he has a right to silence, and he does not have to testify if he doesn't want to.
What you do need to remember, though, is that anything you do say, other than to your lawyers, could be used against you in a later court proceeding. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
You also have a right to
Brian's hair looks a little bit longer than last time we saw him.
in order to exercise that right, you need to file a notice of appeal within 42 days of that final decision, or that right is waived. Also, if you are not a United States citizen, any finding of guilt in this state could have adverse consequences. Do you have a copy of the indictment in front of you?
Yes.
Thank you. And you see in the heading, your name there, is that your correctly spelled complete name?
Yes, it is.
Is that the correct birth date underneath your name?
Yes.
Are those the correct last 4 digits of your social security number?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to read you the charges on the indictment, starting with count 1, burglary. That is a felony under Idaho Code Section 18-1401 and 1403. This alleges that you, on or about November 13, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did unlawfully enter a residence located at 1122 King Road, Moscow, with the intent to commit a felony crime of murder. Count 2, murder in the first degree. That is a felony under Idaho Code Section 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. This alleges that you, on or about November 13, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogan, a human being, by stabbing Madison Mogan, from which she died. Count 3, murder in the first degree, a felony under Idaho Code Section 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. This alleges that you, on or about November 13, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Kayla Gonzalez, a human being, by stabbing Kayla Gonzalez, from which she died. Count 4, murder in the first degree. That's a felony under Idaho Code Section 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. Alleging that you, on or about November 13, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Zana Kernodal, excuse me.
Pretty stoic.
This is hard, I'm sorry. Zana Kernodal, a human being, by stabbing Zana Kernodal, from which she died. Count 5, murder in the first degree.
That was the most facial expression I'd seen from him with Xana's reading.
4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. This alleges that you, on or about November 13, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being, by stabbing Ethan Chapin, from which he died. This is signed on May 16, 2023, by the presiding grand jury. So now I'm going to go to the maximum penalties of each charge. starting with count 1, burglary, minimum 1 year, up to 10 years in imprisonment, fined about
I wonder if Ann Taylor
$50,000
believes he's
fine
innocent, or
and
do you know?
imprisonment.
Do you think she knows he's guilty,
Restitution
but
for
she's just
victims'
doing her
economic
job?
losses resulting
What do you guys
from
think in the
crime.
comments? Does Ann Taylor believe he's guilty
Counts 2,
or
3,
innocent?
4,
Put a 1 if you
5,
think
murder in the
Ann
first
Taylor
degree.
thinks Brian is
Maximum
innocent,
penalties, life in
and 2
prison,
if you think
or the death
Ann
penalty.
Taylor knows he's guilty, but she's
Fine of up
defending
to
him anyway.
$50,000 for both fine and life in prison or the death penalty. Restitution for the victim's economic losses resulting from the crime. Also, additional fine of up to $5,000 to be paid directly to the victim's families. If you are found guilty or plead guilty,
I think she
each
knows he's guilty.
charge, and the maximum sentences are imposed consecutively.
Good point, Harlot. It's her job not to
After
care.
the other. You could be facing 10 years in prison, followed by 4 consecutive life sentences or death penalties, fines of up to $200,000 and $20,000 to be paid directly to the families with any restitution resulting from the crimes. Okay. Mr. Kohberger, do you understand the charge in count 1, burglary?
Yes.
Do you understand the maximum penalty?
Yes.
Do you understand the charge in count 2, murder in the first degree?
Yes.
Do you understand the maximum penalty?
Yes.
Do you understand the charge in count 3, murder in the first degree?
Yes.
Do you understand the maximum penalty?
Yes.
Do you understand the charge in count 4, murder in the first degree?
Yes.
Do you understand the maximum penalty?
Yes.
Do you understand the charge in count 5, murder in
Yes.
the first degree? Do you understand the maximum penalty?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Taylor, is Mr. Kohberger prepared to plead to these charges?
Your Honor, we will be standing silent.
Okay, because Mr. Kohberger is standing silent, I'm going to enter not guilty pleas on each charge, counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, at this juncture, the state has 60 days to give notice of intention to seek the death penalty. And Mr. Kohberger has a constitutional and statutory right to a speedy trial.
Again, just
So
emotionless,
let's
even when they're
start,
talking about the
you,
death
Ms.
penalty.
Taylor, and then Mr. Thompson to discuss some scheduling.
Your Honor, we'd ask the court to set this trial at the very outside of the speedy trial, right? We're not prepared to do anything but ask the court to do that today.
Okay. Have you counted out when that will be? November?
I have not counted it out, Your Honor, but I believe it would be about November 22nd is when the suit would run. Maybe November 20th, somewhere in there. So I'd ask the court to set it for an October trial date.
How long do you think it'll take to try the case?
My best guess is it would take at
Real quick, Lori, yeah, your comment there, I don't know if he looks pissed off, but I was going to comment that he looks kind of like a game face. I feel like he's in court mode, defense trial mode. He's had 5 months, to kind of think through things. And to me, the look on his face is kind of like he's kind of trying to appear, I don't know about professional, but I think his mindset is, okay, it's trial time, have to, game time, basically, game face in a way.
least 4 weeks, maybe 6.
Yeah, it's the same. His face does change quite a bit, in my opinion, too. Different
So you'd
pictures,
like
he
to
looks a lot,
Set this for a
he looks different.
6-week trial?
At this point, I would, Your Honor.
I noticed the mouth movements. I don't know if that's just nervousness, not to nitpick. We all have weird things that we do, but he'll kind of do the weird mouth movements.
Some of the other jury trials I have, but this is more critical and more important. So, Mr. Thompson, what's your...
Those trial dates are workable to the state judge.
Thank you.
He hasn't glanced back at all. Straight ahead the whole time. Did Steve say that, Harlot? Yeah. I don't know if I'd want to look at Steve Gonsalves either. That guy-
6 weeks.
Yes, sir.
Anything else we need to address today, Ms. Taylor?
Not with regard to the trial setting, no.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson?
Nothing to say at this time, Your Honor.
All right. So, with that, by the way, I do want to let everybody know, if they don't already know this, that once the grand jury issued the indictment, preliminary hearing scheduled to start on June 26th was no longer needed and was vacated. So some people are confused about that. So I thank counsel.
Real quick.
At,
I noticed, I was going to say, I noticed Dan Taylor's kind of sitting on the edge here, you know, kind of close. Somebody commented, how does she sit right next to him? Watch this move here, kind of repositioning her chair, but she definitely swings it to the right to create a little space between her and Bryan.
by the way, I do want to let everybody know, if they don't already know this, that once the grand jury issued the indictment, preliminary hearing scheduled to start on June 26th was no longer needed and was vacated. So some people are confused about that. So I thank counsel and the media and the public for your attention and respect. So we are adjourned. Thank you.
Not very friendly between Ann Taylor and Bryan there. I mean, this person's defending your life. I would imagine you've been spending time. Just watch how quick they separate.
And the public for your attention and respect. So we are adjourned. Thank you.
I mean, he doesn't even look at her. Look how big Bryan is. You guys see that? Look at Bryan's arms here. And I'm addressing this. I'm going to turn the mic here since we're getting past that audio. But there, people talk about the ability to attack the four people in a short period of time and overcoming Ethan. I don't know if people realize how big Bryan is, and I do think that he was probably in decent shape. But look at his arm right here. You can see how big, this is not a small guy size-wise. His arms are pretty big, but you can see the size of Bryan pretty good here in this moment. I definitely think Bryan is physically capable of committing the crime from the way he appears, in my opinion, and from what I think I know about him. Perry says he's weak. Yep. Oh, what happened here? Did we freeze? It looks like their live stream freeze. Let's see if it catches up. Yep. So there's prosecutor finishes with a good close up of Bill Thompson there. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, an innocent person. I mean, he just stared straight ahead the whole time. You know, I don't. We still don't know if any of his family was there, which is telling, also. So a few things to talk about. We'll see. We'll see what Brian Entin tweets. Maybe he has some new insights. Let's take a look here. Good to see you, Colleen. Yeah, doing a live this morning. I was gonna work on a video, and then I saw this had started, and I figured we'll just jump on and chat with everyone and catch up. Yeah, he didn't even say goodbye to Ann Taylor. He didn't look at her and smile. Interesting, right? That he wouldn't have a little bit of a closer relationship there. An innocent person, I'm saying, right? Of course, if he's guilty and he is who, if he is who many of us think he is, I could see there being some tension there. But if he was an innocent man, right? If he really was innocent, and Ann Taylor was in that room with him, and they were sitting down, going, "Hey, I'm innocent. Yeah, you're innocent. Look at all this stuff. They're framing you. We've got to prove your innocence." You would think they would be a lot closer. Reading the comments here, just catching up. That's a great point, Beatrice. The adrenaline in a moment like that, in a short period of time, definitely. Okay, so Sarah commented Brian's family was not there. Interesting. I also noticed, too, in the last hearing, it was just one of his sisters. Maybe his other sister wasn't able to attend, but it was just the mom, dad, and his one sister. We haven't really heard anything from them since. Yeah, Tamara, I wonder what they do. You know, I wonder what Brian's like to work, you know, how he is to work with, based off of the student feedback and other people who worked with him. Now, there were some people who worked on projects with him in school that, you know, they got along somewhat. So maybe he is able to work in that capacity to some extent. Agree, Colleen. I think if you know, Matt, you know, just think a high profile case like this, everybody thinks you did it. You're sitting in jail for months. You know, I would be doing everything I could, you know, to get out of jail, be able to speak. You know, the defense is arguing to keep the gag order in place. Don't say anything, right? Is the defense's argument. If I were innocent, I'd be like, lift that gag order. Let me tell you everything. I'm innocent. You got the wrong person, right? I was doing this that night. This is where I was. Look up the cameras, right? You'd be wanting to voice your innocence. Brian's family was using Zoom. Interesting. Okay, maybe they were in the other room, and that's a great point. Maybe they did not want to be in the public eye, and so they went into that other room and watched it on Zoom, because I believe there's 2 rooms that they use. One of them's live, one of them is the stream. I believe standing silent is just waiting. He's not entering a plea either way at this point. I think maybe, I don't know, but maybe they want to make it official regarding the death penalty. They have, it sounds like 60 days to confirm that they'll be seeking the death penalty. That could weigh into whether or not, you know, how he pleads. And we're all assuming he's going to say plead not guilty. He could, their whole game here could just be trying to save his life, and not get the death penalty. They might just be playing games to try to come up with a plea, and then down the road he could plead guilty. Now, I don't know how it works in Idaho with that, because I don't think the victims' families want a plea deal like Steve Gonsalves. I think he wants to see it all the way through to the very end, to the death penalty. And so I don't know how much the prosecution and all that would talk to the family about their wishes and whether or not they would accept a plea deal from Bryan or not. I think if they did do that, from what I've heard, some of the victims' families want the death penalty, so they may not even offer Bryan a plea deal. You can't plead to something if they're not offering you the deal. I mean, he could plead guilty and take the death penalty, but it's not up to Bryan to negotiate. The state and the prosecution is going to have to offer that to him, right? So maybe the defense could do something and say, hey, Bryan will tell you everything that happened and why if he can have life in prison, and the family could, maybe they would consult the family in that situation. But I think with the amount of evidence they have, and I think the victims' families know more than we do about the evidence that they have against him, they may not want to even plead. They probably want the worst punishment possible. Yeah, I agree, JW. And I also agree, McKenna. I don't think they're going to offer a plea. But, we don't know for sure. I mean, sometimes things could change, and maybe they just want it to end and be out of the spotlight again. I don't necessarily think that's the case, because based off of how passionate Steve Gonsalves is about this, but maybe other victims' families have a different view, and they end up coming to an agreement later. We don't know. They're still, until he pleads one way or the other, we won't know. So a couple months until we know that for sure. All right, so let's see if there's anything new from Bryan. So everyone, real quick in the comments, since I have you, what kind of video would you like to see next? Is there any topic that you want to talk about? I am going to be working on that this evening, so let me know in the comments here what you're interested in, what you're, maybe anything about the case that's been bugging you or that you've been thinking about, or that we can't figure out, and we can talk more about that. I do want to go over some more of those documents. I have a few talking points on that. And then specifically, I wanted to talk in my next video about was some of the rumors going around about the surveillance that Bryan may have either installed. I don't necessarily know for sure if he installed like surveillance, but there's that story about he had somebody that he knew from school that reached out to him. He had apparently broken into her house, moved things around, then she reached out and he helped her set up some sort of security surveillance system, and there's rumors that he could have accessed it. Now, I do think that there could be something to that. I don't know if it's as far as like a camera in the vent watching, but I do think that Bryan has knowledge about technology, as far as based off of his background and learning about cloud forensics. I think that he does have some technical ability, hacking type of stuff, being able to access somebody's Wi-Fi, for example, access people's accounts. I think he probably does have some background and some knowledge. There's things out there, I've heard of things called flippers where people can, generate false Wi-Fi, so when you go to connect to your Wi-Fi, it looks like it's yours, but it's actually a fake one, and it's feeding you to another person, somebody's hacking in that way. I think Bryan does have, because he would have been exposed to some of those things while he was in school and learning about those things. And so I could see there being a technological connection to the way Bryan stalks his victims. And I actually did talk about that for any of you who are a member of my channel. I talked about that in one of our members only discussions. There were some Instagram accounts that I believe were linked to Brian that I looked into that were just that. They were hacking type and kind of data monitoring type hardware and software applications that this account Brian was following was interested in. So for example, if you were to go and spend time at an Airbnb somewhere and logged into their Wi-Fi, somebody could come in there with a device and connect to that Wi-Fi and actually access all of the stuff that you did while you were in that Airbnb, right? And get to your data and find your passwords and all of those things. And I think about that night of the murders and the timing of when Brian left his house, you know, right around that time when the girls were calling Jack and about to go to bed. So a little part of me does wonder if Brian was monitoring them in some way via technology. So I'll talk more about that in the next video. I'll show you some of the screenshots too from that account that I just mentioned, and some of that stuff, that why I think that there could be a potential, there could be some validity to that story about Brian. Yeah, Sarah. So that was what they were saying, that he had her password. He could have logged in and seen, you know, watched through the camera. Agree, John. Yeah, if he pleads guilty, it basically is a confession, right? Because they're probably going to want to know all of those details, right? Hey, yeah, I'm guilty. Okay, tell us what happened. Great point. Hey, Kat, I see that. Yeah, so Brian and the BTK connection. Interesting. Yep. You're welcome, Beatrice. Yeah. Yeah, let me know. You know, those in other countries, I think that's so great that we can all come together here. If you don't have access, yeah, you know, shoot me a note if there's anything I can help you with, any updates that you don't see. I'll do the best I can to share that with you. I do too, Root. I want to know about those IDs. Yeah, Tanya, that's another theory there. The already hiding inside. You know, the death penalty thing, one of the things that can lead to the death penalty is lying in wait when you commit the crime. So it could be something to that if he had snuck in. The only thing is they know he left his house, right, at a certain time, because he's on camera. And so, you know, I think that they've narrowed down that timeline pretty well. Yeah, I mean, technically, right, William? You know, he hasn't pled either way, so I guess, you know, as of now, he's pleading not guilty. But officially, I don't think he's put in a plea just yet. So here's really quick. These are I'm going to wrap up here just with a review here. These are the charges that Brian has against him. So when they were reading the indictment right here, you can see here that he's being charged with burglary, but then we have the murder in the first degree, Idaho Code 184001, 002, 3, and 4. So if we look at what these are the codes he's being charged with. So if we look at those, we see here 4001 is murder. So the unlawful killing of a human being. 4002 is express and implied malice. So such malice may be express or implied. It's homicide. It is express when there is homicide is express when there is manifested a deliberate intention unlawfully to take away the life of a fellow creature, and it is implied when no considerable provocation appears, or when the circumstances attending the killing show an abandoned and malignant heart. Okay? Then we have 4003. So this is talking about degrees of murder. So this is where we talked about the first degree, second degree, and I made that video where I was asking, you know, all 4 of the victims are being charged with first degree murder. And I was wondering, well, why is that, right? If Bryan was targeting one person, why is it 4 counts of first degree murder, premeditated murder? But according to some of the statutes in Idaho, if you do kill multiple people while, you know, targeting one person, I do believe that that can fall into first degree murder. It's not necessarily premeditated, but it falls into their rules of first degree. But they do note in the indictment that it says premeditated. So we're not sure, but it says here, Idaho Code 184003, degrees of murder. All murder which is perpetrated by means of poison, lying in wait, or torture, when torture is inflicted with the intent to cause suffering. So that could also answer it, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that Bryan thought ahead of time to attack Ethan and Xana. He could have still been surprised by them to some extent. I wonder if the injuries that were inflicted upon them could be considered torture. They've been described as very brutal injuries. Could that have be part of it? But it does say here that if the murder is perpetrated by means of poison, lying in wait, or torture, where torture is inflicted with the intent to cause suffering, to execute vengeance, to extort something from the victim, or to satisfy some sadistic inclination, that's essentially murder in the first degree. I don't know, Rue, if they drug tested Bryan or not. Yeah, and I don't know if Bryan is on any medication either. That we haven't heard anyway, and that could offer some insights about Bryan's mental state if he was taking something. But we haven't heard about that, and they have said that he hasn't really seen any doctors, from what I've heard, as far as a mental evaluation. I don't know if he has at this point or not. Well, everybody, I'm going to wrap up this live right now, and then I have to get some work done. I'll be back on later to work on a video for you. Feel free to chat in the comments here. Let me know if there's anything you want to see. I'll be working on that. And really appreciate you all joining today and watching this with me and talking about it. I'll be doing a lot more lives as well. Still just kind of figuring out the niche of the channel and finding my way a little bit with this editing software, but keep the feedback coming. I read all of the comments. If you guys see a heart on there, I'm reading everybody's comments. I reply as much as I can to them, but I definitely read them all, and I think about your feedback and the things that you point out in the case. It's one of my favorite parts about this is just being able to talk about it with you and then hear everybody's ideas. There's so many smart people out there, so please keep it coming. So thanks so much, everybody. I will see you very soon, and keep an eye out for my next video. I hope to get it posted by this evening, but if not, it'll be up tomorrow morning for you, and I'll talk to you then.